Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patti LuPone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hi, I'm Chilina Kennedy. Welcome to the Theater Podcast with Alan Seals.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Theater Podcast. This is an all-new episode with Chilina Kennedy. I am your host, Alan Seals, and we've got some great conversation that I'm about to share with all of you. Quick shout out to all of my Patreon peeps who are diligently supporting the podcast. It helps everything happen and keeps this going, so big love going your way. Chilina is maybe best known for taking over the iconic role of Carole King in Beautiful, the Carole King musical, but she does not stop creating. She's got so much in the works right now that we dive into, and coming out of the pandemic, and of course being a relatively new mom of a growing youngin, keeps her very busy, but our conversation is actually really impressive. She just dives into what makes her tick and what makes her unique, which of course is what I love to share. So find me online, Instagram, Threads, Facebook, Patreon, do what you do. Leave a rating, leave a review. They always help. Share this podcast with your friends so it can continue to grow and we bring you more great episodes. And everybody now, please enjoy this episode with Chilina Kennedy.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
Today's guest is known for playing Carole King in Beautiful the Musical on Broadway for over 1,200 performances. She also recently originated the Tony Award-winning role of Dina in the first Broadway National Tour of the Band's Visit. She made her Broadway debut in 2012 in Jesus Christ Superstar, was most recently seen on Broadway in Paradise Square, has toured nationally with Beautiful, originated the touring role, I already said that, and was part of the originating cast of the first national tour of Mamma Mia. She's a singer, songwriter with her own full-length album called What You Find in a Bottle, has co-written a new musical called Call It Love, and is part of an upcoming release of the world premiere recording of a new musical, that's a mouthful, currently in development called Wild About You. Chilina Kennedy, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. And good God, on top of all of that, I didn't even mention you're a mom. And so turns out, and like, I'm so impressed with people like you who you pursue the creation of original works as much as or more so as the I guess the auditioning and the daily, what we think of as the normal theater grind, right? The auditioning and the wanting to be cast in other people's works. So I guess that's a good place where we can start. I guess like where and how do you split up your focus between, joining other people's works versus creating your own? And then I'll add to that, did it change after COVID? Because a lot of people like reevaluated a lot during that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, listen, I've always been very passionate about new works and, whether I'm writing them or somebody else is writing them. But I just think getting something brand new off the ground is incredibly excited. Like I just played Billie Jean King in the new Anna Devere Smith play, Love All. And it's so exciting. I mean, just to be able to be in that room with her and to watch her work and, to work with some of my favorite people. It's just like, that's the part that excites me the most, is being in the room and doing the work. And then the run is, that's another animal at the run of the show. But I do love rehearsing it. It's really fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I was going to bring up Love All as well, which I want to touch on that since you just mentioned it real quick. The extraordinary life of champion Billie Jean King at La Jolla that just ended, right? It just ended July 2nd, I think, in La Jolla.
Yes,
right?
it did. Mm-hmm.
And I guess, so when you're doing the work focusing on, you've got your album, you've got your own musical that you're trying to still develop, and we can get into that as well. And then being part of other concept work like Wild About You, which is also in development. I mean, it's development. So I guess, is it easy or easier for you or harder, like ego-wise, to just show up and say, all right, now I'm going to embody Carole King. Now I'm going to embody Billie Jean King. And are you also only choosing roles that end with King?
Yeah, I'm only playing characters who are real. Like, it's funny because I also play Carole Pope in this new musical. It's Canadian called Rough Trade, which is based on the band from the 80s. But I mean, it's funny because I'm like, I only play, it seems like, characters that are either named Carole or King or a combination of those names and that are, icons. But it's wonderful. Listen, you try to take ego out of it if possible. I mean, listen, we all have egos, and it's always wonderful to have your own words and music out there and to hear people sing your own stuff. But I mean, really, it's just about the work. The work is the work is the work, no matter where you do it. And I just get excited about doing projects that speak to me and playing roles that are difficult. I think I find it a big challenge to get inside somebody's skin especially who is still alive. So, I mean, somebody like Carole King, it's a prime example because, everybody knows her voice. They know who she is or they think that they know who she is and what she means to them. And I mean, I used to meet so many people outside the stage door afterwards. We're like, oh my gosh, this album was when I was going through my divorce, or this is when my best friend and I took a road trip across the country, and like Tapestry was everything. And I wore out my first album and I had to get another one. And like, people are obsessed with that woman and her music. And I was too. I had no idea what a huge fan I was of hers until I started doing the research and I realized just how many number one hits she had. But then, there's a ton of pressure that goes along with playing somebody like that. Same thing with Billie Jean King. That everyone's like, gosh, you taking tennis lessons? I'm like, I don't know anything about tennis, but I certainly have to kind of pretend like I know what I'm doing. But really, it's sort of your ego aside and just trying to show up and do the best work possible and stay true to the task at hand.
Well, it is, when you're drawn to projects, are you drawn, you said you're drawn to things that are challenging, right? And I guess, are you drawn to, or do you find it harder or easier to play real people versus take for example like the witch in Into the Woods or something that is it's an archetype. It's like, hey, my pretty, it's like one of those. I mean, obviously, or not obviously, but like these days with Disney and movies and everything, like everyone's got an idea in their head of what something like that could be, and it's a caricature of something or someone that could be real. But when you're playing a real person, you can't exactly do that. So you can't. No, I think it's way harder to play a real person. I mean, just because of the expectations, the pressure that you're under to get it right, and also you don't want to do, it's funny, like for a Broadway production, you don't want to do a Saturday Night Live version of the person. So you want to kind of get inside of their bones and do, like, I always think that there's little ways in, the mannerisms that they have or certain tics that they've got or timbre of their voice or the way that they move their body. But, you don't want to sort of do like an impression. You want it to sort of move organically through you and who you are. So I always say, like, if on the rainbow of personality, Carole King is a yellow and I'm a red, well, then I'm probably going to be an orange, right? Like that version of my Carole is going to be somewhere closer to yellow on certain days and a little closer to red on other days. But it's always hopefully going to be truthful. But it's terrifying, because people love these women. And so, you just want to do the best that you possibly can just to, just out of respect for who they are and the legacy that they've left for us. I mean, I was just at the US Open the other night and we sat in Billie Jean King's box with her wife, Alana. And, and I just thought, like, the whole way through, they just kept showing her face and this footage of her playing. And I don't think I realized, I mean, you know what an icon she is, but yeah. And then you see the 50th anniversary of Equal Prize Money and you go, oh no, I don't think I ever really appreciated how many lives she touched and how she made the world better and how she made everything better for women. I mean, not just in tennis and in sports, but all, women everywhere. So, you just want to do that justice. Really? So you went through the run. I mean, the run, as we're recording this is, early September. So US Open just happened. So like really even the run is over and you're still learning more about Billie Jean King at this point? I guess more of the impact? Yes. Well, I mean, there's a, hope for the future for the show. It's not over. So, the work continues all the time. I keep reading things and experiencing things and trying to, keep the education going, the research going. Yeah. Well, okay. So going back to the second part of my first question about COVID, did that change your, I guess your focus or your evaluation of yourself or where you wanted your career to go?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, oh, listen, I mean, especially now too with the writer's strike, there's just so little, I mean, there's no film and TV right now. So it's sort of like theater is it right now. And for the longest time, theater, nothing was happening. And so, a lot of the stuff went online, but I thought to myself, my goodness, what am I going to do if this doesn't come back for a while? Like I was sort of, I was a bit in a privileged situation where I have a house and I had a place that I could go and shelter and I could be comfortably to sort of weather it out. But it was really hard for all of us, especially artists during that time, for lots of people, but artists in particular. And I've always wanted to be a writer. I mean, I've been a songwriter for a long time, but I definitely started thinking, maybe I'm going to be teaching more. Maybe
Wow.
I'm going to be, I just wasn't sure. I mean, I literally thought about completely abandoning everything and just going for something else.
kidding.
But I didn't know what I could do. I mean, honestly, this is the only thing I've ever done since I was 4 years old. So I don't know what I could possibly do if I didn't do this. So it's a little terrifying if I'm being, completely honest.
That's really interesting because it's just really odd to me as someone. I will say, okay, I've never, I'll put in air quotes, made it on Broadway, right? I've never done a role for 1,200 performances on the highest level possible in the world for my craft. And then, but this person, you are like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to do it anymore. Like maybe I can't do it anymore. It's unfathomable, I think, to some people who dream of being where you are. And I think I want to shine light on the fact that even when you're at this level, and I say this all the time, speaking of, Billie Jean King and other great athletes, that I think Broadway performers are the Olympians of theater. I think you are the best of the best at the top of your level, and you take everything into account. Your eating, your sleeping, your social life, everything revolves around maintaining your physical presence and emotional stability to maintain your character in your show. So I'm just going to stick a pin in that. And yeah, unless you comment on that if you want. I think
No, that's
you're
absolutely
shaking your
true.
head. You're nodding your head during the whole thing.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is accurate. Yeah.
I forgot where I was going with that. Anyway, so since you were 4, that you mentioned this is all you ever wanted to do. So you're Canadian, yeah?
I am, yeah. Well, it's funny because like during the pandemic, it's not that I wanted to stop doing it. It's just that I didn't know if we would ever recover to such a, in such a way that I would be able to do it the way that I'd done it before, I guess. And so the stories that we were telling became even more important. So, well, if we are going to do this, and it's especially because the world changed so much, I wanted to make sure that the stories that I was telling and the projects that I was involved with felt, that I felt a connection to them and that I really felt like, it's hard though too, when you're trying to make a living, right? Like you need to be able to make a paycheck, but you also want to be, maintain your integrity as an artist. So it's tricky. But yes, and I have been doing it since I was 4, to answer that question. And I lived all over the world. I was raised all over Canada and Australia and England. And then my dad moved to the States when I was in high school. And so I spent a lot of time in the States. So, sort of all over the map.
It's the army brat, right? Sort of. Yeah. Wait, so is your dad U.S. military or Canadian military?
Canadian military.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. So as Canadian military, you moved to England and then U.S. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't go to the U.S. until he went to the War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, when I was in high school. But I didn't actually go with him. I just went to go visit him there. I stayed in Canada to finish out high school. So it was quite the life.
Asking for a friend, what's the War College?
Oh, it's just where they go and they train, they study. I don't really
like
know,
boot
to be
camp?
honest. They study war and how to, I mean, I'm not sure. They do a lot more than that. My dad's also a writer. He got a big, award when he was there for his writing, and he's also a big peacekeeper. It's interesting because my mom was a peace-loving hippie, and my dad was this army guy, and they got together and had me, and so I'm sort of like, oh boy, those are two very different, ends of the spectrum.
Well, okay. So the peace-loving hippie part, I want to come back to that because that's related to something else that I want to dig into with your son Ebenezer, which we'll get to that story as well. Going back to 4, what at 4 years old was like, this is what I want to do?
Well, I was a dancer. I was like, I want to be a ballerina. I was playing piano. I was singing all the time. And I just wanted to do everything that had to do with performing. That's literally all I ever wanted to do. And then I started acting when I was in high school. But I was classically trained in all the ways. I was, a classically trained dancer. I was a classically trained singer. And I guess it wasn't until college that I learned how to belt, or I remember I almost failed my pop class, and that was the only class that I almost failed. Every other class I aced, and it's because I didn't know who I was as an artist. The wonderful woman running it, she was like, you're playing it safe, and you're recreating these sort of Joni Mitchell songs, but you're not really putting your stamp on any of them.
Yeah.
You're just kind of playing it safe in the shadows, and you have to take a brave kind of step forward and figure out, you have to flop a little bit and decide who you want to be as a vocalist. And I was like, oh gosh, I hadn't thought of it that way. So it's funny, actually, because of that advice, I really, jumped out of my comfort zone. And then I ended up basically the rest of my career was like playing Carole King and doing Mamma Mia and all of these pop shows, or these rock artists, now playing Carol Pope in this Rough Trade concert. I mean, my God, in this show that we're doing, it's insane. I mean, I definitely found my rock voice, so that was exciting.
Are you, side note, are you tired of talking about the same thing? Like Carole King, if somebody's known for something, are you tired of just being asked about it all the time as I'm asking you about it?
No, you know what? It's a good question. People used to tell me or ask me all the time if I was sick of doing the show. Like after 1,200 performances, it's a lot. But I always think of listen, playing Carole King was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I love her. I love the role. I mean, I got to meet her. I got to sing with her. I got to have great conversations with her. I got to meet her whole family. And so, that was, it's a dream come true. She's a huge role model for me. And the biggest takeaway from that is just how humble she is, and how she does so much more than any one thing. I mean, she's an environmental activist, and she's, involved in politics, and she just does so much for women. The list just goes on and on and on. And she's just one of the most humble, kindest people you've ever met. She'll sit down and talk to you and be quite candid about love and loss and life, and, very free with her advice. And I just love that. So no, I never get sick of talking about her. I think she's one of the greatest artists ever to live. And I feel very lucky for all of the things that happened because of knowing her and playing that role.
Something that I have noticed in this episode as we're recording, I think this is going to be in the 280s when it's released in the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got almost 300 episodes of talking with amazing people like yourself, and talking about amazing people that the people I've talked to I've got to portray, such as Carole King. And this through line that I'm seeing is, again, it's be the best you can be, right? So don't, like the advice that you got from your teacher was you got to put your stamp on it, right? So don't be somebody else, be the best you. And so taking that, I guess, into the current sort of zeitgeist of this profession, right? Like, how often are you legitimately trying to create something new versus be somebody else, versus do this combination of both of them, or is it always just one of those things where you're like, I'm just going to show up and be me? And like at this point now, are you so comfortable with showing up and making a mistake that maybe that mistake is what gets you in the door? Maybe that mistake is what gets you the part.
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite thing was this. There are certain actors who are just known for the way that they do something. They are, they're like huge personalities.
Hang on, everybody. We're just going to take a quick break. All right, now we're back.
Patti LuPone, okay? Like Patti LuPone is unbelievable. And she can play anything, but she's always got this version of like Patti LuPone that everybody knows and loves, like Burnett Peters, like all of these really, very famous Broadway stars. And I guess the thing that I like best is to get completely lost. My favorite thing is when nobody recognizes me. If I come out of the stage door and they're like, who are you? They're like, oh my God, you were the person who played that role. And they have no idea that was me. I love getting lost in parts and being completely unrecognizable. Like, to me, that is, I love that. It's a job well done. And, it's exciting. Like, when I played Billie Jean King, like people had no idea. They're like, oh my gosh, we didn't even know that was you. And that's what I just love. I mean, I had blue contacts, like I changed the shape of it. Just changes everything about your look, and my voice changed. And so I feel like that's kind of exciting, and I think also when to go back to an earlier question that you asked me, when you play characters that are not real people, like the witch in Into the Woods, or, whoever, like Ophelia and Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. I mean, you get so much freedom because nobody, you don't have necessarily, I mean, sometimes with roles like Evita, it's hard because you've got that Patti LuPone in your mind. And so everyone's comparing you to her. But oftentimes with those roles, you can sort of do whatever you want. Like you've got, the world's your oyster. You can sort of make them whatever you want them to be, and just get as creative as possible. And I always think like the worst thing that can happen is people go, oh, you know what? That's not quite the right direction. Like, go further, or, oh, that's a little too far. Like, why don't you try this, this color? But that's kind of the point of being creative, is like just to throw it all at the wall and see what works. And you just have to kind of be confident and bold, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think we're so afraid of making mistakes in this world. Like, we're so afraid because our egos are so big. We want to be told that everything we do is great. And, myself included, I have to remind myself constantly that like, it's okay to not always make the right choice. Like, better to have tried and to have gone all the way and to have to be brought back or have somebody help me change direction than to not have tried. Because maybe I'll come up with something that's really brilliant, or maybe it'll be, funny or whatever. Maybe it'll just be great, or maybe it'll be terrible, but at least I tried.
Well, that's something that I've noticed too from people talking about their audition experiences. They literally just go in, and the people, I've heard countless times now that it's somebody who is just struggling and they haven't landed anything, and then they go into that last audition. They're like, you know what? Screw it. Like, this is it. I don't care anymore. I'm just gonna do this, and then I'm gone. I'm gonna go be a librarian, and that's the job they book that changes their career, because they're going in having fun because they've stopped caring about whether or not it's good.
Yeah, you know what? I have to say, and people sort of roll their eyes at me sometimes when I say this, but like, auditions are a bit like dating. And you have to you have to flirt a little bit with, the material and what you're doing, like especially on camera auditions too. If you're auditioning for film, TV, like you have to sort of treat the camera like it's your, it's your sort of secret lover who's staring at you from across the room. But also the same thing, I found this with, I auditioned for this off-Broadway show called This Ain't No Disco. And I just went for it. I made like the boldest choice. I wore these crazy 70s glasses and like this big fake fur thing and like bell bottoms. And I just went in and I was just, I don't know. I just went like full out 150%. I thought, well, this could just fall on its head, but I booked the job. I mean, I just, I did it. And I was like, I was super flirty and it worked in my favor. It doesn't always work in your favor, but yeah, there's just a way of kind of like when you're on a date with somebody, you have to have confidence and you have to kind of always keep a little bit to yourself. Like secrets are always good, or like a little bit of mystery. You don't want to like just throw everything out there. You want people to know more. You want people to lean in a little bit and want you to reveal a bit more.
Yeah, that's what I think good headshot photographers have always told me too, or like, what's your secret? Like, think of a secret. Think of something really fun in your mind and just hold it there. And then like, those are the pictures you end up using because you're feeling something legitimately in your mind that is then captured. And I think if you can bring that live to an audition, that's the hardest part, especially self-tapes now. Good God.
Oh, my God, I know.
Yeah. So self-tapes are the worst because you don't get eyes to look back at you. At least when you're in person, you have people to look at across the table, even if they're not looking back at you. You can like feel something.
Yeah.
But the camera is just this freaking piece of machinery and it's reflecting it. You're like, I don't know. I know
you have to like imagine, it's like imagine somebody really great.
You should put like put a little picture of somebody you really like right above it. Actually,
that's a really good idea. Actually, that's an excellent idea. I should do that.
You just print a little 5x7, tape it like right above your camera. There you go. Yeah. So your next job you book, when you're staring at your favorite person, think of me. There you go. Or think of the person, whatever. Okay, so you have a slew of Canadian career credits that I didn't even list because we'd be here all day. How often, I guess, are you located based out of New York or Canada now? Or like, do you go back and forth? How do you prioritize
I go back and
that?
forth. I'm always back and forth. So like right now I'm in Canada, like just for a little bit, but I'm literally back in New York, like in, 3 days. So, and then back here again. So it's just always all over the map.
Well, where do you prefer? Do you prefer, or is it just wherever the integrity of the job takes you?
Yeah, it's just whatever project, I'm doing a reading of a brand new show in Toronto, a workshop at the end of the month called Maudie. And it's a film and they're adapting it into a musical. And I'm super excited about that. I've been talking actually for quite a long time about doing that. So, that takes me to Toronto, and then I'm going back to New York to work on a new piece that I've been commissioned to write. And then, just there's always there's so many. I mean, I guess, and to go back to another thing that you said before, like I think I was not the only one. I think everybody came out of the pandemic with a renewed sense of why are we telling these stories, and like what is important now. And we keep asking ourselves these questions, with Wild About You or with this other show that I'm writing, like why do we need to hear this right now? What is relevant about this story right now? And what is going to make people excited about the music and about jumping into these characters? Like, what is it that we have to say? And I think it's important that we do have something to say. You can't just sort of tell any old, dusty story. It's got to be for a reason these days, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, talk about Wild About You, because it's still in development, and it had a great, well-received industry presentation back in March of this year in 2023. And then like immediately out of that, greenlit an album. Like coming out of the pandemic, one of the great things is that now we're getting albums and even just straight up concept albums before the show's ever starting to be staged.
Yeah. So, well, this is one of the things I'm most excited about. I mean, I've been working on this show for the past, probably like 5 years. My writing partner is Eric Holmes, who's one of the writers on The Good Fight, and he was one of the writers on Smash, and just a great guy. And Daniel Edmonds is doing the arrangement. So he and I have been working like crazy on the music. But the show used to be called Call It Love. So now we've retitled it Wild About You. And we have a fantastic lead producer, Brian Spector. And he was like, we should do a concept album. And then when we started asking around, I mean, we've got like literally my dream cast of people. Like we've got Jesse Mueller, Lea Salonga, Kat McPhee. We've got all of these incredible, like Alex Newell, who just won the Tony for Shucked. I mean, Eric McCormack, Joaquina, who I shared a dressing room with, and she won the Tony last year. She's brilliant. And I mean, Paul Nolan, Jackie Burns, like the list just goes on and on and on. And I just, from the time that the first person said Jen Colella, that they would do it, I just flipped out, and it just kept getting better and better and better. Jay McKenzie, Kennedy Coggle. We've even got a child, which is really, really exciting. We've got Rachel Gordon, who's a magician, and she's been on Broadway, and she's just the sweetest little girl. And so we've got a child's voice on it for the first time. So, we've really conceived of it as a pop record, and it's going to be released under, it's a Broadway Records. That's the label, and Michael Moritz is the one he's won 1 million awards, so it's in his hands right now, and he's doing the final mixing and mastering, and hopefully we'll release it in October is when the plan to release it is. And I'm so excited for everybody to hear it. I mean, it's literally the most terrifying thing, because it's like you've birthed this very, vulnerable baby that everyone's about to sort of look at and judge. But I think we're confident that, what we did was good, and it came from an authentic place.
How does that work? Plus, Lauren Lataro, by the way, love her.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, directed by Lauren Lataro. I would be nervous putting out a cast album or even a concept album, knowing that there was like a concrete sort of like, it's being developed now, a concrete sort of 24-25 timeline to get it onto stage. So putting out all of the music with a story does that fix the story? Does that set the tracks? Because part of the development process is adding and cutting and changing and updating and blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So by the time it gets to an out-of-town tryout and then the Broadway run, and fingers crossed, are we going to have half the songs on this album that may be cut? Is that a nervous thing, a bad thing, a good thing?
No, I think the way that we've kind of, designed this album is that, the songs, I mean, a lot of the songs are just sort of songs that exist on their own on the album. So, in the show, it might be a duet or it might be very, very different. And so we've just sort of taken the songs and we've kind of carved them out, and we're just really presenting the music in its most idealized form, right? Like if we were just going to do the concert, it would sound like this with all these big stars. And then when people come to see it in the show, it's going to sound the same, but it's going to be different in the context of the show. And because we've been working on it for 5 years, I mean, a lot of these songs have been on the chopping block already and come back, or these are brand new songs that I wrote for this version of the show. And I think, what we learned from the last reading is that this version of the show, what we've got now, is working really well. I mean, there will be tweaks for sure. There's going to be some rewrites. Things might swap places. There might be one or two new musical moments, but for the most part, it's going to be what we have. A lot of these songs have been there and have not changed for the past 5 years. So I don't imagine that in the next, 12 months, they're going to be pitched. But we might have a few. But that's interesting for people if they're like, oh, that song wasn't on the album or whatever. It's just like a bonus.
Yeah. Yeah. You mean the last 5 years, but but I'm ching.
Right.
So the being on the other side of the creative process, right? As a performer, who's been the recipient of contracts and negotiations for shows and whatnot. Are being now on the creative side? Are you approaching these relationships with your peers and whatnot, like Joaquina and Jen Colella and everybody else who's on the album? Is there any guarantee, given their availability, that they're going to continue to follow this through the evolution?
Well, listen, we. Oh, you mean like in terms of casting it for the the future of the show? Yeah. I mean, it's tricky, right? It really it's made me extremely sensitive to the complexities of casting anything. Like, it's funny. Like Jen used to say, it's a miracle that anybody gets cast ever. In fact, I think that's something that Lonnie Price used to say. It really truly is a miracle because, like, to get everybody to agree on any one person for anything is just so impossible because there are so many freaking talented people everywhere. I mean, especially in New York City. Like I can think of, 10 people who I would be so lucky to have for any of these roles. And, like sometimes it just comes down to like, you really love somebody and they just don't work as well with this other person as this person does. And it's not because that person is not good. They're probably all fantastic and you'd be lucky to have all of them. But, it's just a matter of balancing and mixing personalities. And so I guess it's made me realize that when I haven't been cast in the past, it's probably because it's not because I sucked. It's because, like the Tetris of it all just didn't quite work.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that all the time. And that's something that's still to this day, even professionally outside of theater, right? Just business-wise, relationship-wise, sometimes it's just all about the relationship. It's about the chemistry, and that's why you hear famously about, especially for film, like got to go in for the chemistry read and make sure that these two people even like each other. Hang on, everybody, we're just gonna take a quick break. All right, now we're back. I was on Reddit yesterday reading criticism about Moulin Rouge. Someone who saw it the first time enjoyed the show, but thought the people, whoever was the Satine and the Christian, had no chemistry together, right? And so that took them out of the moment. Well, that's it. I mean, that's bang on. I mean, it's all about chemistry. It's also about how you are in the room. Like with a brand new piece, for me, it's all about being somebody that you can collaborate with. Like you want positive people who know how to give the right criticism at the right time, that know when to sort of just hold back and just sort of read the words on the page and just sort of let the creative team figure it out. But then, when there are moments that they can give feedback, I mean, you want those minds in the room. And we've been so lucky to have really smart people and talented people in the room, but also people that have great, personalities and that just want the best for the piece. And so that factors in as well. I think it's brilliant. I mean, again, it's one of those things like be the person that people want to work with the next time. Because that's what's going to make them want to at least call you in to get the audition.
Yes. Or like that's the other thing too, is that even if you don't get that job for whatever reason, probably not because you're terrible, because you're great, but there's just, you're thinking of somebody else for it. Oftentimes there will be another job that comes as a result. Like I know that there was somebody that we had originally who was fabulous, who played one of the roles in Wild About You back when it was Call It Love, and we didn't move forward with her. But then she ended up getting a job on Eric's TV show. So it's just like, you just never because we all loved her so much and he loved her so much. He was like, oh my gosh, we have to use her in the next thing. And I mean, that happened to me as well. I didn't get once. I went in for once and I didn't book it, but then the same casting people brought me in for Carole, and then I ended up booking Carole King. So you just never know how it's all going to work. So you always just have to do a great job. And
you would have been a great girl. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, I would have loved to. But again, it just didn't. I don't think it's because I did a bad job. It just is because somebody else was more right for it. It just wasn't meant to be mine at the time.
Yeah, what is it? It's a third, the cliche thing, right? It's a third talent, a third a third drive and a third luck. I think those are the three things that make you successful. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
there is a big chunk of that. I just think this is so interesting to go through the process of creating a show. I mean, just being sort of like I'm in the producing side a little bit now, the co-producing side, and even just being on the peripherals now. It's fascinating to me, all the different people, like you said, the amount of collaboration, coordination, and again, from the creative side too, luck. Like you could have everything lined up and you just don't have a theater. There's no theaters in New York.
Oh, I know.
You would go into.
It's crazy. I mean, that's it. Or, like, yeah, it's so true. I mean, you have to have everybody on your side. It's just, you need so much luck to be able to get it done. But also, perseverance, because I think that also creates luck. If you just, you keep at it and you keep looking for the open door or the little crack in the window and you get in there.
So I agree with that. Rewind a little bit to 2015. You released What You Find in a Bottle. That's your full length album that you've released. That's the only album you've released, right? I got my facts right?
That is the only one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And would you do it again or will you do it again knowing how hard the first one was? Assuming it was hard. Because
I certainly will. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm such a perfectionist too. And so when I go back and I listen to that album, I mean, it was, I had incredible musicians, and Rick Fox did the arrangements, and we had, Inception Sound. They were the producer. And it was amazing for the time. But I mean, I have grown so much. I mean, I think it was actually, we recorded it in like 2013 or something, or 2012. And so that was a really long time ago. That was like over a decade ago. And I have changed enormously as an artist since then. And I think I'm a better singer now than I was back then. And, and I think that was definitely a timestamp of like who I was in that moment. But I certainly would love to take a crack at, what things would sound like now, being, who I am now with all the influences that I have now. I would definitely love to do another album, maybe in the next sort of 5 years.
Well, I was going to say, in your free time, assuming you have any free time, what do you like? What do you listen to, and are you writing? What do you like to write about now?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I have no free time right now, so I'm just sort of writing for these projects that I'm working on. But I'm a big fan of like, oh gosh, like I went through a big Dan Mangan phase. He's a buddy of mine, and we were working on a show. A two-hander, and we actually ended up shooting a short film, he and I, but he's a wonderful songwriter from Vancouver, and he's got a kind of a bigger following now in New York. And I just think his songwriting is so incredibly soulful, and he's such a poet. And so I love, going out and looking for these, these interesting sort of off the beaten path artists. Yeah, it's exciting. Like, I don't know. I have so many different influences, and sometimes I'll go back to like an 80s playlist, or I'll go back to like, Yonsei or something. Like, it depends on what I'm working for. I can't tell you sort of what I listen to, because it changes literally daily.
Well, that's so cool. Yeah, I like I like the music coming out of like the mid 20 somethings. I call them kids now because I'm early 40s. These mid 20 somethings that have now grown up with the internet in their pocket and have access to so many influences and so much so much access to different styles, right? And so it's coming together now. So I was talking with Javier Munoz the other day about the concept album he was just part of, called My Heart Says Go, and it was written by this, again, early something 20 something I call him college kid, I think, and I was listening to this album, and it's very much influenced. It's very Lin-Manuel-esque. It's kind of like Hamilton meets here next to Normal.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's this really cool combo. And so it's nice now that Hamilton and In the Heights have been around long enough so that people who are young enough to be influenced by that have grown up and become talented enough to now have it influence what we're hearing again. And I just love this circle coming through.
I know, isn't it amazing? I also am really inspired by the artists that I work with too. Like, I mean, I don't know if I mentioned Aisha Jackson. She's doing a song on the album, and it's funny because I often write for voices that are not my own. Like I'll write a song for somebody like Aisha Jackson, and I go, oh, like it's not my voice that I'm hearing in my mind. Or like Melissa O'Neill was somebody else who comes to mind that I'm, we used to work together, and she just has such a cool, gravelly, breathy R&B sound, and so I try to stay. I mean, there are certain things that I think we're naturally born to do, and maybe other ones that, we should let other people do. But like, but I do feel like being in New York City and being around all of these incredible artists it's just changed me as a vocalist. I'm never going to be the same. The time in New York has made a huge impression, and so I'm grateful for that.
Where do you, when you're not working, or I guess when it's family time, because I'm going to bring this back to Ebenezer a little bit. And Ebenezer's not your actual son's name.
No, I know. It's funny that you know that, because that was his dad pitched me the name Ebenezer, and I was like, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah. Henry, can we say his full name? Is that all right?
Yeah, Henry Benjamin Kennedy James. Yeah, that's cool.
I love that name. When you telling that story on with Kara Cooper and Jessica Rush on Mama's Talking Loud. I was listening to that the other day. Yeah, so Ebenezer. I was like, oh, that's funny. I would not. I mean, if you call your son Ebenezer, no judgment, but it's not a current name. And this was a couple of years ago. You were talking with them about Henry, and at the time he was drumming and playing piano. Is he still with that? Does he still love that?
He still is, although, he loves live things. Like, he loves old fashioned cars. He loves like real instruments. So he wants to sit down and like play guitar with me. And he wants to do things with me, but he doesn't like his little electric drum set that we had in New York. He was not interested in. So as soon as we came back to the house in Canada, he's got his like full drum kit down in the basement, and he immediately went down there and started playing. So he's still very much interested in it, but he's a little scientist. Like, he's an engineer. I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to do something in his life with engineering or science. And I literally have zero experience or, interest really in that. I mean, I'm obviously interested because he's interested, but I am like, he's teaching me. I am not teaching him at all. He is really smart in that department.
My kids just started 2nd and 3rd grade, so they're right at that age where like their interests are definitely like coming out, what they really like versus what they don't. So seeing the differences in I guess they're two peas in a pod, very similar, very different with so many things, but the differences in what they like and don't like, it's really incredible. But then like younger child syndrome, my little one is like, I think I should like that because my older brother does, but you can tell he's forcing himself to like it just because he wants to be with older brother. And it's I can relate to my own childhood being an older brother. My younger brother did a little bit of that to me too, but it's just really interesting. And I love that you're not, that you're letting him be his own he's following his own path, right? And even though like your whole life is art, it's, he's still finding ways to dive into the engineering and to dive into science. So,
well, and that's just it. I was going to say, like, it's so easy to want to push them into what you do because that's what that's what you love. And, you sort of, I just sort of like assumed that he would want to do all that stuff. And he does have an interest. And I've always said that every child should at least know how to play one instrument or know a little bit about music, just because it makes them a well-rounded human being. And I also think that it's good to know another language. But other than that, like, I think it's important to just let them be their own little people because, he's got so many talents that are not my talents. And he's also a really good filmmaker. He's been doing these like stop motion films, and I'm just like, where did that come from? He's really good at it. And technology, like, he wants to learn how to use a green screen, and he's pretty amazing.
my third grader now, speaking of green screen, he's like, I always ask him, because I'm checking in to see if this has changed, because I don't know if I'm happy with it yet. I say, what do you want to do when you grow up? He's like, I want to be a YouTuber. I'm like, oh, okay. So, and then my younger one, because my older one wants to do it, the younger one's like, can we make a YouTube channel today? And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want to record? What do you want to do? You have to, think about what you want. And so I'm trying to help him like realize, even when we're watching movies and things, that like I sit through some of the credits, and my older one now is very good about saying like, oh wait, that's the voice of so-and-so. I recognize, like, I forget what we were watching the other day, but it was Idina Menzel was the voice of something, and he was like, that's the Elsa voice. That sounds like Elsa. And I was like, oh wow, yeah, it is. So he's picking up on this little stuff. And so I'm like, yeah, there's animators, there's programmers, and now the first live action movie that he watched end to end twice now. Last week we saw The Haunted Mansion, Disney's Haunted Mansion, and there's a kid in there. If you haven't seen it, there's a kid. He's, I think he's supposed to be 8 or 9, I forget. But my son turns to me afterwards and he was like, Daddy, is that a real kid? And I said, yeah, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I didn't know kids could be in movies. I said, yeah. Oh man, of course they can. Of course. Yeah. And so like this opened up this whole conversation about like, when we see ads and there's all the people, like if you're watching somebody in a restaurant, all the people look in the background, all those people are paid to be there. They are there. Well, they're extras. Maybe they're not paid, but they are there because they're hired to do a job. They're all working. And they're like, and you could see it starting to unfold in his mind of like, wait a second.
Wow. Do you think he wants to do that now? Like, does that?
I don't know, but I think for the first time, he's, stepping out of the animated movie box and realizing that there's real people doing real things.
Right.
And one of the first things I think that sort of clicked was I showed him a picture of me and a Hugh Jackman once when I was doing the carpet coverage for Music Man, and I was like, because he loves Greatest Showman. Both my kids love The Greatest Showman, and I'm like, look, it's me and P.T. Barnum. He was like, are you famous, Daddy? Like, nope, promise you I'm not. But yeah, it's like the kids are finally starting to connect the dots. Does Henry do that with you too? Does he know like that people will know who you are especially if mentioned by name or whatnot?
I don't know. I mean, there was a little while. It was really funny. Like for a little while, my face was all over every trash can in New York City, and so there's like this picture of him going, "Hi, it's my mom." So I don't know. I don't know that he really like, we always, we try to be really down to earth with him and not to kind of focus on that stuff. So I don't know that he really kind of clocks it. Although he does an impression of me, which is really funny because I have these glasses, and when he was little, he was like. He put them on. He was like, my name is Chilina Kennedy, and I run a theater, and I do this, and I'm a choreographer, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it's like, look at me being so busy. So I think he gets that, what I do for work, but I don't think that he sort of associates it with anything other than that, what he knows of that.
That's so cute. Well, kids, gotta love them, gotta hate them. So let's wrap up here with 3 standard closing questions that I ask everybody to end the episodes. The first one, just very simply, is what motivates you?
What motivates me? Ooh. I love to be a part of projects that I'm passionate about and to work with the best possible people. Like I get so excited when the people around me are so talented and I really have to work to get up to their level. And that they teach me something, that they challenge me to be better than I am or to grow in ways that are super scary. So that motivates me. I just think there's so many incredibly talented people around and I just want to be working with all of them and have them around me because I think it makes me better. So that's learning. Always be learning, right? And it's it's never too late to learn something new. Yeah.
So what advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out on a similar path?
That's a great question. I mean, I guess we kind of tackled it already, and it sounds probably really cheesy, but I always say the same thing, and I'm trying to see if it still resonates. But yeah, it resonates. It's you just, be yourself. Like obviously when you're playing a role, you're not playing yourself. But I think to tackle it authentically as the artist that you are, instead of trying to be somebody else, like you're never going to be somebody else. I'm never going to be any other artist than myself. I mean, I used to think about this all the time when I took over Carole from Jessie. I'm like, I'm not Jessie, and I'm never going to be Jessie. And Jessie was amazing in the role. And the only way that I'm also going to be amazing is to do it my way. And, I think we just have to have faith. And if I could have told myself that, to chill out a little bit more, maybe take myself less seriously and just trust my instincts and that I am enough, that I don't have to be somebody else. I don't need to be validated by that. I can rest easy in my own skin and my own artistry, that it is enough.
Okay. Last question. And this is the hardest one. If you can only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Oh, God. Ooh, see a show. Oh, that's a hard one. That's a really, really hard question. I mean, it just sounds so dorky and so sort of traditional, but like my favorite musical of all time was Fiddler on the Roof. And I guess it's so long and but I don't know if I could just watch that over and over again. I don't know. I mean, Hamilton is pretty great.
I agree.
I don't know. Maybe Hamilton. I love Hamilton. Right. It's one of the only ones I saw twice. I never see a show twice because there's always so much to see. And definitely saw that one. Or, oh gosh, what was that amazing one? David Byrne, you know?
Here Lies, no, not Here Lies Love. Well,
No.
Here Lies Love is David Byrne now, but Utopia.
Utopia. Yes,
Yeah.
that's another one that I saw twice because I just loved it. So I might see that one. I might say that one.
Okay, that's the first for Utopia. I like it. I like it. Okay. Let's see. So you had mentioned a while about you that the album's coming out planned in October-ish timeline, right?
Yep.
And
Yes.
then if all goes well, it's going to be staged in the 24-25 season.
And we're also going to the UK to do some concerts in the UK in London of the concept album once it's released. So that's exciting.
Nice. Oh, that'll be fun. Okay. Where can we find you on social medias? Do you play that game?
I do. I'm on the Instagram. So if you want to find me on the gram at Chilina Kennedy, I have a Facebook page. That's kind of all I do. Insta's really my big one.
I like Threads now. Threads is sort of like my new because it's still so small-ish that it's nice. You can have like some personal connections with people. You should try it. Give it a try.
Oh, that's good. Okay. I'm going to write it down. Threads.
Yeah, It's Instagram's answer to X, like shitting the bed. So there you go.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Threads, Instagram. I guess X can take a long walk off a short pier. I don't really care about that anymore. Leave a rating and a review wherever you're listening now. Find more about me at thetheaterpodcast.com. Jukebox the Ghost gave us our intro-outro music we are listening to right now. And Chilina Kennedy, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this conversation so much.
Me too. Thanks for having me. You've been awesome.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.